Last month in April, Korea held a general election, and for the first time in 16 years, the opposition party came to secure the largest number of seats in the House. So what does this mean for the 20th National Assembly? We'll talk about that right here in this program, Upfront.
The 20th National Assembly of Korea will officially start its term soon. From May 30th, 2016 to 2020, the 20th National Assembly is expected to speak for the voices of the public. Both ruling and opposition parties have recently spearheaded efforts to meet the expectations of the public. Members of the 20th National Assembly were selected through the legislative elections, which were held in April. Of the 300 members, 253 will be lawmakers representing electoral districts, and 47 will be proportional representatives. And a great change is expected to take place in the 20th National Assembly. People's Party, which was established right before the elections, won 38 seats and formed a floor negotiation group, following the Saenuri Party and the Minju Party of Korea. It has led to the first three-party system in 20 years in Korea. Moreover, opposition parties have seized a majority in the National Assembly, as the ruling Saenuri Party won one less seat than the Minju Party of Korea. The public has shown high expectations on the upcoming 20th National Assembly. People have also raised concerns over the remaining issues that hadn't been resolved at the 19th National Assembly, which include the issues related to people's livelihoods, economy, and security. President Park Geun-hye has emphasized that the upcoming 20th National Assembly should put the most emphasis on revitalizing the livelihoods of the public.
이번 선거의 결과는 국민의 민의가 무엇이었는가를 생각하는 계기가 되었다고 생각합니다. 앞으로 국민의 민의를 겸허히 받들어서 국정의 최우선 순위를 민생에 두고 사명감으로 대한민국의 경제 발전과
Strengthening cooperation has become one of the most significant factors for the 20th National Assembly. And Upfront discusses the expectations of the public, as well as the challenges facing the 20th National Assembly of Korea.
Well, for today's discussion, we have Professor Park Tae-woo, research professor at Korea University's Institute of Sustainable Development, joining us right here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me here today.
And Professor Sung-gul, professor of public policy at Kookmin University. Thank you very much.
Yeah, very nice to meet you.
All right, let's start with our first question. We have a lot of questions to cover here. First of all, professors, it's a long Korean tradition in recent years for new National Assembly coming in to organize their committees and so on take a longer time, much longer time than what their internal regulation or law says. Some people, as far as I know, like, for example, we're talking about 20th National Assembly this time, but 17th, 18th, 19th National Assembly going over about close to 2 months to prepare themselves. What's the reason that these National Assemblies, every time they come in, take such a long time to organize themselves?
Well, it's basically because of the greed, actually, what I call the greed of the parties, the political parties, which would like to take some kind of initiative in forming the standing committees and etc. Within the National Assembly, because there are some positions very important in standing committees, and also which party will take, say, for instance, the law, what is that?
Judiciary
the Judiciary Committee. It's very, very important because it can either block or hurry up passing all kinds of legislations. So that's basically the only reason why that took place.
Yeah. Professor Hong said only reason, but there are other reasons, I suppose. Any additional reasons for taking such a long time?
In composing newly elected lawmakers, committees, and also electing new speakers of the National Assembly.
Speaker is a big question, right?
2 vice speakers,
But isn't
one
there
national speaker.
internal rule for choosing speaker, though? No? Is it every time they have to agree?
Usually the ruling party used to be taking charge of,
But what if the
speakership
opposition
in the
party
past.
has the largest number
But
of
this
seats?
case is a particular case. In case opposition party secure larger number of seats in the elections, they have to negotiate, which party will take over the speakership of the National Assembly. And the reason why they have not met legal deadlines in forming the National Assembly from the 13th to 19th Assembly in the past is due to, as Professor Hong explained, probably the calculating political interest of each political parties, political greed or something like that. It means that if a House Speaker is allocated to the ruling party, opposition party used to argue that they must take over the chairman of the committee of the legislative judicial committee, which is a gatekeeper to
so give and take.
control all the
if you
bills.
have the speakership, we will have to have the judiciary committee.
That's right.
Headship. So give and take. Every time that the negotiation takes time.
That's right. And usually they have not met the deadlines because they used to spend much time in negotiating, allocating approximately 18 standing committees of the National Assembly, because each committee has its particularities and general interest. So lawmakers, prefer certain committees while they do not like to go allocated into another committees. So it took a lot of time, I think.
Professor Hong, chairmanship of the committees, why does it matter that much? How much power do chairs have in this committee operations?
Well, the chairman basically has the right to open the session or not. That's the biggest kind of power of the chairmanship, number one. And the second, depending upon the size of the national budget, each standing committee has different portion of budget, right? If, say, for instance, certain standing committees, for example, the Infrastructure and Transport Committee.
Right, which is always popular.
Yeah, always popular simply because it has a lot of money, right? And therefore, the lawmakers, if they were assigned in that particular committee, they can they can have more power to invite more money for their own districts, and therefore it will automatically increase the possibility of re-election for themselves. That's why what I said the greed, because National Assemblymen, they are representing their own districts, but basically they are the lawmakers for the whole country, and therefore we are expecting from them that they are acting for the national interest instead of their own self-interest. But in this case, as we have seen most of the lawmakers are acting for their own interest.
I mean, for everybody, job security matters, and the lawmakers, their job security question goes to what kind of committee they get, so they can serve their constituents, I suppose. I mean, to be a little bit cynical about it. Professor Park, can you tell us about other committees like construction and infrastructure? Very important. What are some of the very the popular committees we're talking about?
Popular committees. Another popular committee for the lawmakers, except the Land Infrastructure and Transportation Committee, is, I think, some committees which could allocate more budget to their local district. For example, land infrastructure and the transportation has largest, portion of budget every year allocated to them. And
what about industry ministry?
That committee is popular among lawmakers. Also, I think the committee which deals with issues of local infrastructure development, also something like giving more funds for industrial development or something like that. So it depends on each member's calculations, which part they are interested in.
The Judiciary Committee and the Steering Committee, are they important for individual lawmakers in terms of serving their constituents' interest here, or is it all about the political game that matters for the party?
Well, for the steering committee, it is more or less the kind of strategic importance for the political decisions along between the parties. Yeah, partisan politics. But for the standing committees that the particular lawmakers are assigned, that's mostly like self-interest. The behavior kind of predominant in deciding the committee. As Professor Park just talked about, energy, industry and energy committee, and also education is very important because
why education?
Education because educational budget is tremendous.
But can they actually allocate some of the education budget to their particular districts?
Yeah, the school districts has their own budget, but also the Ministry of Education has additional budgetary power, budgetary resources to be allocated by the committee by the standing committee within the National Assembly, and also the cultural tourism the standing committee, because there are a lot of events can be taken place in all the different districts, and therefore lawmakers kind of prefer to have them. But for the national interest, as I said, say for instance the standing committee for national security. This is the kind of number one. But at in this coming 20th National Assembly, only 5 or 6 lawmakers actually volunteered to be assigned in that particular
because it's
committee,
important for the party, but not for them individually.
Right, and this is very, very shameful.
What about the Intelligence Committee? You're talking about defense, but
the Intelligence Committee is not the standing committee. It's not the standing committee, and therefore many people can have the dual membership.
I see. In terms of that was the overall general trend that we've been seeing so far, but maybe can we hope for some kind of difference this time? I mean, at least in terms of meeting the time, right, Professor Park? Can we expect the incoming 20th National Assembly, is there hope that they will actually open the session sooner than the previous National Assemblies? If so, why? If not, why not?
I would rather say that not much optimistic about the prospect of the 20th National Assembly, because even in the two-party system, 19th National Assembly, because of the National Advancement Law, nothing came out of negotiations as we expected. In the 20th Assembly, three-party system, which means that the People's Party has the casting power. So if People's Party do not cooperate with either of the ruling or largest opposition party, nothing could be done here. So I hope the Park Ji-won, floor leader of the People's Party, the third largest opposition party, will make effort, to produce many kind of good result regarding also organization of a new National Assembly, also passing the bills which is relevant to economic revitalization activities.
That casting vote role for the People's Party is a fascinating subject. Let's revisit that subject later on in our discussion. But Professor Park has talked about the 19th National Assembly and how this may not be very different. But Professor Hong, I want to ask your personal opinion about the 19th National Assembly. Some people believe, not everybody, but some people believe the ruling party, and even perhaps the president has tried to present a picture before the election that the National Assembly is not working, so we need more seats for the ruling party so that we can get things done, implying and often even arguing the 19th National Assembly was lazy, unproductive, and so on. Looking back, what is your view? Was that political propaganda, or in your own personal view, there was a fair observation about the 19th National Assembly?
Before mentioning about the 19th National Assembly, I would like to come back to the 18th National Assembly. When 19th National Assembly was elected like this, people said that the 18th National Assembly was the worst National Assembly ever had in Korean political history. They said about more than 30% of the National Assembly has been replaced in the 19th National Assembly. So this National Assembly, the 19th Assembly, will be much better than the 18th Assembly.
Right.
I think pretty similar kind of situations would be repeated in the 20th National Assembly. We have replaced almost 40% of, now, I mean, in this 20th National Assembly.
Right.
And we have 3 parties rather than 2 parties. But I think a little bit different prospect that I have from Professor Park is that because these floor leaders, they are worrying about how the public opinions are going bad if they have a kind of stalemate.
You mean more so than in the past?
Well, more so because there are 3 parties, and especially the People's Party.
Yeah.
If depending upon how they act, they can make some kind of change in making the whole situation. So they would like to avoid any kind of this kind of criticism, a very fierce criticism from the public opinion. So it seems to me that we might have a little bit different situation, which means that we have, of course, we have fierce debates about how to form this kind of standing committee structures and everything. Right. But I don't think it's going to take like about 2 months to just open
because of the presence of this third party.
Because they have a lot of criticisms and they knew that how badly punished the Saenuri party did. I mean, they received in the 20th election, National Assembly election.
So incoming National Assembly possibly be different. What's your pessimistic
view? A little optimistic than the 19th. 19th National Assembly was classified as Plant National Assembly, 식물국회, something like that. The reason why we expect more optimistic one comes from the fact that we have different political environment. Next year we are going to have a presidential election. It means that each competing political parties must, have more people support by doing good political activities, meeting the people's demand in the political circles.
So does that mean the party leaderships in each party, they will more tightly control their members in terms of they can show the particular party's patterns or achievements to the people?
I don't think, the controlling the National Assembly members within the parties will be that much different from the past. But, presidential election year usually makes political parties, look more into the opinions of the public. And
more sensitive.
Also listen to the voices of, economic circles and other voices. So I think, they are trying much more fruitful, sessions in the coming years, in the coming next year, because, they want to have more successful, campaign strategies next year for the president.
Because of the coming presidential election. Okay. What about the president herself being in her later part of the term? How will that influence the operation of the 20th National Assembly, the way you see it?
Well, she does not have any option to cooperate with the 3 parties, and that's why she already met with the floor leaders and policy, the chairman of the policy committees of each party.
Are you saying that because President has to produce her legacy, and in order to produce her legacy or outcome of her presidency, she will have to work with the National Assembly?
All right, of course, but the problem is that she may not act, the necessary cooperation. In other words, she has to work with them because of the different environment and structure of the National Assembly. But she would not give up her own policy directions and her goals and stuff like that. And therefore, we might see a lot of more conflicts, which is very, very difficult for actually Saenuri Party to go on, because Saenuri Party, they have to worry about the next year's presidential election, and this is actually the presidential election race will already begun, actually. So there was two different perspectives. One, Madam Park may have different views on the presidential election because she doesn't have to worry about the national election. Instead, she is worrying about what she has to achieve. And the rest of the
Very
period.
focused on her own work, okay. Professor Hong, let's talk about the composition of the incoming 20th National Assembly. You mentioned 40% replacement rate.
Almost, yes.
Almost, and which is different from the about 30% replacement ratio for the previous National Assembly. What does this mean? Can you compare further with the more of the previous National Assemblies? And when we have 40%, close to 40% replacement ratio, can you elaborate further on that point, what it actually could mean for the operation of National Assembly?
Well, the portion of the first National Assemblyman does not really make any big difference.
It doesn't.
What I'm saying is that the political parties, they are boasted of having fresh people, fresh faces in National Assembly. The key problem is that instead of having new people, but the key issue here is that how they act in favor of the public opinion. You know, how they they serve their own purposes. So instead of political law rollings or a lot of scandals or adamant behavior and very unproductive conflicts within the National Assembly. So for that matter, I don't think new faces or new membership does not make any difference. The key problem, key issue here is that instead of having that new faces, how the strategies of each party will come out in producing the winning solution for the next year's presidential election. And that pressure will make these three parties rather cooperate with each other rather than have fierce conflicts as we have seen in the 19th National Assembly. That's the key point.
Even in the 19th National Assembly, we had about 148 new faces at the time. Almost 50% changes of all the faces replaced by new faces at the beginning of 19th Assembly. But we used to watch all the practices going on. No changes there. So what Professor Hong mentioned is the change of the nature of politicians' behaviors to more public interest, something like that. And I think the new faces are themselves, public constitutional organizations, one by one. So I think they have to fulfill the people's need rather than following the orders of party boards or some wrong policy lines of each party. So this is very important.
New faces don't matter as much. But what about the ages? If we have a younger lawmakers, maybe fresh ideas, some people would say. But this time, they say the incoming National Assembly is possibly the oldest in terms of the average age, and the average age of 55.5. Well, that's not that old in my own standard, but they say it will be perhaps the oldest one. What does that mean? Some people are saying we have so much of youth-related issues here, and should we be concerned, or once again would you say ages don't matter?
That's right. We can criticize the composition of the age groups of the new assembly because the average age is around 53, 50. It means that it's older assembly already. But we have a lot of new ideas, political dynamics to be inserted into the political operations of the new 20th National Assembly. So we need new programs for youngsters and the new college graduates to meet the demands of those hopeless peoples there. So in this sense, in their 20s, in their 30s, at least issues have more than 30s, 50s, but right now I think less than 10. It means the unbalance in composition of age groups in the National Assembly.
Still, it hurts me when you say 53 is old age for National Assembly. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about the composition of the National Assembly, and with regard to that, let's take a look at this video. We interviewed some of the incoming new faces of the National Assembly, and some of them, not all of them, are quite young as well. So let's take a look at this, and we'll continue on discussing the future of the 20th National Assembly. We'll be right back after this.
많은 정치 불신들을 많이 해결해 보기 위해서 제 개인으로서 어떤 역할을 해야 될지 좀 많이 고민을 많이 하고 있습니다. 아무래도 최연소이고 20, 30대라고 하는 그 젊음의 느낌 있잖아요. 젊고 뭐 패기 있고 뭔가 도전과 모험을 즐기는 세대를 일반적으로 많은 청년이라고 하는 이미지로 많이 갖고 있으니까요. 기득권이나 아니면 이미 형성되어 있는 그런 관행이나 모습들에 굴하지 않고 대신 청년으로 할 수 있는 좀 패기 있는 활동, 그리고 제가 청년 NGO 활동을 하면서도 청년의 재능과 역량을 우리 사회에 좀 올바르게 좀 쓰일 수 있는 그런 가치 있게 청년들이 가치 있게 쓰이는 사회가 되길 바라는 게 많이 있었거든요. 그래서 지금 청년들이 많이 도태되고 좀 자신의 꿈과 역량을 발휘할 기회를 많이 갖고 계시지 못하는 게 많이 있는데 그 재능과 역량들이 적재적소에서 잘 쓸 수 있는 그 기반을 만들 수 있는 역할을 저는 이제 입법가로서 해봐야 되지 않겠나라는 생각을 많이 갖고 있습니다.
적어도 저는 다음 세대를 준비하는 정치인이 되어야 된다. 다음 선거 생각하는 그 정치꾼도 있지만 다음 세대를 준비하는 정치인이 되려고 한다면 우리 아이들이 지금 10년 뒤에 20년 뒤에 만나야 될 사회가 지금처럼 그 불공정하고 또 사회가 양극화되어 있고 교육의 기회가 박탈되기도 하고 하는 그런 사회에서는 안 된다. 그를 위해서 이제 노력을 해 나갈 생각이고요. 대한민국 정치권에 적어도 저런 사람 하나는 있어야 되겠다라고 싶을 만큼 좀 미련스럽게 미래지향적으로 이야기하고 또 과거는 학생운동도 하고 또 노동운동과도 연관이 되어 있고 또 진보정치 활동도 적극적으로 했었던 사람이지만 문제 해결을 하고 먹고 사는 문제를 해결해내기 위해서라면 대화, 타협하는 걸 두려워하지 않고 문제 해결을 마침내 이뤄내는 그런 미련스러움 있잖아요. 그런 정치인으로 한 걸음 한 걸음 나가보고 싶습니다.
지금 여야가 성장과 분배론을 가지고 이제 말을 나누고 있는데 그 부분이 실질적으로 청년들에게 전혀 와닿지 않는다. 저는 7년 동안 벤처를 하면서 3개월 뒤에 직원의 월급을 어떻게 줄 수 있을까라는 부분에 관해서 한 번도 고민을 안 해본 적이 없거든요. 근데 그 부분에서 성장과 분배가 아니라 지금은 생존인데 그 생존에 관해서 아무도 말해주지 않는다. 그 부분에 있어서 사실은 비례대표이고 초선이고 어떻게 보면 할 수 있는 역할이 어디까지인지 저는 아직 잘 모르겠지만 이제 제가 할 수 있는 부분에 관해서는 정말 최선을 다해서 20, 30대들의 생존을 위해서 한번 싸워보고 싶다, 도움이 되고 싶다라는 생각을 하고 있습니다.
Okay, let's continue to talk about the overall composition of the incoming 20th National Assembly. There are so many different topics to cover. For instance, the ruling party being small and an opposition party being big, and three-party structure, and we have non-affiliated independents and so on. So let's talk about the non-affiliated independents. They're saying out of in total 11 of them, 7 of them are the ones who left the ruling party. One way or another, for different reasons. And if they join in, then maybe they could tilt the balance, different speculations. What do we see in terms of the independents? What difference can they make?
If out of 11 independent lawmakers, 7 are classified into pro-ruling party tendency lawmakers.
Will they all join the ruling party later on?
I think so. They are just looking for the time, which time is proper for them to join in without public criticism.
But aren't we hearing inside the ruling party about the skepticism and is this something that happens all the time?
Some pros and cons against each one lawmakers like Yoo Sung-min and Yoon Sang-yeon of different districts. They are showing some different attitude, but in the end, they will accept all the lawmakers.
You think so?
Even adding 7 lawmakers, total number of ruling party lawmakers will 129 against 171 of the opposition party members combined, which means that...
That's when you assume that all the oppositions will be united.
United. Actually, opposition parties are opposition parties, even though People's Party will show some different stances regarding pending bills. In a major context, Park Ji-won, former leader of of the People's Party will tilting toward more to the opposition, the Minju Party of Korea. This is, I think, a very important,
generally you can expect
general
that.
point. So, the ruling Saenuri Party must show a politics of cooperation or compromise by having more dialogue, sometimes conceding some important political interest to the opposition parties. So independent lawmakers, even though the number is 7, this is very important. If they join, increasing to be the largest number of political parties, becoming the largest party out of those, 3 major parties here in Korean political
In that regard, Professor Hong, would you see that this time, even though the ruling party is small and the opposition is big, because of the presence of People's Party, it will be a different kind of pattern that we've never seen before, or what can we expect in terms of this overall power balance?
Well, the structure, the structure of the 20th National Assembly is quite similar to that of the 3 kingdoms period in in ancient China and or in Korea. So depending upon what People's Party, for instance, whether it get along with the Saenuri Party or Minju Party. All those the laws and regulations, the directions of the regulations will be changed. Here, it seems to me that overall, I think most of the national security issues or kind of things, I think the People's Party will be joined with the Saenuri Party.
I see.
But all the economic issues, the redistribution, stuff like that, that probably they will come aligned with the Minju Party.
I see.
So the key here is that how the flow leaders of the 2 major parties actually, how they can persuade Park Ji-won, the flow leader of the People's Party.
Right.
So it will be, I think, more dynamic. Than the 19th National Assembly period.
Right.
And those dynamics will be will decide whether the 20th National Assembly will be more productive or not. And they should be more productive because all these 3 parties are contending with each other for the next presidential election.
I see.
So that's...
We do have, as you know, the National Assembly Advancement Law, which requires 180 members to pass an important bill.
Rather
it means
than
that
the absolute majority.
That's right. To designate a contentious bill, a fast-track deliberation item, we need at least 180 seats out of 300. Even though opposition parties' numbers are combined, it is only 171. It means that without communicating with each other, with more concessions and compromises, the 19th Assembly operation will be deadlocked in dilemmas. So they need more talks and more negotiations in the coming years.
But I would like to add one more thing about that legislative advancement law. The Constitutional Court will make a decision probably by the end of May, or the Saenuri Party will also make a voice to amend that particular law.
Will they really? This time, don't they need it?
This time. Of course, of course, it is their own interest to let it continue. But if they do it, then people would say and will criticize that, okay, this party changed their position depending upon their self-interest.
Then they're just
think that's they are still quiet, but I know that the flow leader, Jung Jin-seok, he always commented on, we are going to continue on changing this law because they are at this moment, they are waiting for the Constitutional Court's decision. If the Constitutional Court decision is made that in changing the law without having amending process of the National Assembly, that's fine. But by the decision, it is constitutional. Then they will start to amend that particular law.
Don't you see?
That's my view.
Don't you see a Saenuri Party kind of hoping keeping quiet and hoping that the Constitutional Court will not produce a ruling that will overturn the law, though, this time? What do you see?
That's right. The Saenuri Party's position has been changed, I think.
Right.
But according to some rumors, Constitutional Court will rule that the National Advancement Law should be changed. Otherwise, Plant Assembly will be continued to go on. So I think, even though at the cost of some political interest of ruling party, I insist on Saenuri ruling party to change the National Advancement Law.
But can we see in that case, though, the opposition kind of running the National Assembly then, in that case?
Of course, there will be a lot of debate going on. But for the general interest of Korean politics to be improved to a more advanced level, I think this kind of compromise should be going on at the cost of a small political party interest.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, and also, additional view is that by amending this particular law, the People's Party will have a truly casting vote, right? And for the Saenuri Party, it is better for the People's Party had the true casting vote instead of stalemate.
I see.
See what I'm saying?
Interesting.
So it's depending. Of course, I'm not what can I say? The think tank of the Saenuri Party. But if I were the Saenuri Party, then I would like to continue on the original position because this is a political party, the major party, which would like to go on for the next presidential election. Right? And if they change their position, then they will be met with very severe criticism about the whole situation.
Changing their words. Okay, that's very complicated strategizing, and it's fascinating calculation right there. But let's move on to a little bit easier topic to talk about. Professor Park, the new suggestion, was this from the ruling party floor leader, Jung Jin-seok, to mix up the seats instead of traditional seating arrangement by parties. He suggested that they should just mix up the seats and then the members of different parties should sit around, mixed around. What does this mean? Does it really make a difference?
To reduce the confrontations among the lawmakers.
Why does
because
it
in the process of sessions going on, if some lawmakers are making remarks, unfavorable to the certain political party, they are yelling and shouting, sometimes criticizing in a louder voices. It means that they don't have much dialogue in the session. So if they are seated mixed together, probably they
cannot coordinate shouting and stuff.
Face to face, probably more smiles, more dialogues. But the question is, without the change of the nature of their attitude as a politician, I don't think this kind of a small formalities changes will produce any differential result in the future. Looking into the advanced country like the United Kingdoms, the House of Commons, seat arrangement there. Look, on the right side, ruling party or opposition party. But they are showing very effective, discussions and passing bill sessions. The nature of politicians themselves are much more important than seat arrangement in the National Assembly.
Let's move on to a little bit more substantive issue, I hope. That is President Park. She is making difference this time in terms of her gesture or her strategy dealing with the Assembly, National Assembly. That is, she got together with the floor leaders of all three major parties May 13th, and they had a discussion and all that kind of stuff. The meaning, significance, is this very important? Does this indicate a real change?
Well, I hope, first of all. I mean, she met with the party leaders a couple of times, maybe 3 times before. But
which a lot of public believed it was very infrequent. No?
It's very infrequent because all of her meeting with opposition party leaders were unproductive, in fact. So that's why I said I hope, because this time, she needs it. She needs the cooperation with the opposition parties. And simply meeting one time or now they decided to meeting regularly every quarters, right? So it is a good start, at least, but meeting does not solve any problem. Meeting and listening and cooperating and also finally agreement on certain issues is very important. For drawing out agreement, President Park should concede something to save their faces.
Give and take.
Yeah, give and take kind of politics. So far, she did not concede anything. So that's why I said I strongly hope for her to concede something, to get something that she wants.
Right. Even though she suggested this quarterly meeting gathering, but you say there should be kind of substantial action, give and take. Professor Park, one really thorny issue, that is the fact that as many as about 90 incoming members of the National Assembly, they're under the investigation, or their name has been raised as a possible violation of election law. And so the public prosecutors are looking into some of the cases, and they'll have to do more of it, which means next year in April, we may have, some people say, the largest by-election ever. What do you see here? What does this mean? Will we actually get to see that? 90%? 90 members?
Out of 90 members indicted, I think at least 20 members will be, be guilty of those election crimes. Also, election law violations must go through a fast-track investigation and the judgment processes, so that people will not waste time to fulfill their district demands and needs in the future. And if at least 20 seats are again re-elected in next year, it means that political landscape will be changed again in the presidential election year. So a lot of impact will be created on a different shape in the coming years. And the Election Management Commission and also public prosecuting authorities must listen to the voices of the public, that this time in the fastest way with strict investigation, without any pardons or a small, I think, something like that, emotional approaches must be eliminated. Legal approaches only. Legal judgment must be priorities this time.
I see. So you're expecting probably about 20 or so
At
cases.
least 20.
That's going to mean a large-scale by-election campaign, as you mentioned, which will actually tilt the balance of the National Assembly. Very much of interesting discussion going on here. Right here, since we're talking about the future of National Assembly, the incoming 20th one here, let's take a look at the interviews with people out there on the street in terms of what they're expecting for this new incoming National Assembly. And we'll come back after this video. We'll be right back.
I hope the 20th National Assembly can pay more attention to the social issues. More concrete investigation is needed to prepare better measures for the challenges facing society.
I think finding a balance between the younger and the older generations is the most important factor to make significant progress in the upcoming 20th National Assembly. And Korean society has seen the notable decline in the number of students because of the shrinking population. So I think the 20th National Assembly should prepare appropriate measures to deal with this issue.
I hope the upcoming parliament could achieve a lot of fruitful results.
I hope the 20th National Assembly could introduce a lot of bills that can boost the happiness of the public.
I heard that the National Assembly is going to introduce a bill related to the youth unemployment issue, but I guess we haven't seen much progress in the job market for Korean youth. I think tackling the youth unemployment issue should be placed at the top of the agenda.
You know, we talked about how, quote unquote, in the eyes of many people, the 19th National Assembly was unproductive. And meaning that there are different aspects to why we are saying that. But in terms of the campaign pledges, when they were elected, they had all these pledges and promises. And what happened was when they came into the floor of National Assembly, they didn't really deliver on this. And this time, what do we see? I mean, in terms of the list of the campaign pledges we see among the major parties here, large ones, big ones. What are you expecting? Are you expecting some difference this time?
That's right. In the election process, I was surprised to discover that all the political parties promised to the voters that they are going to create 11 million jobs in the coming 4 years with the national budget of more than 20 billion won, something like that. 20 billion jo. I was surprised. Our government is creating only about 300,000 jobs every year, doing our best. How could they create 11 million jobs in the coming 4 years? It means that they made a big word, but not practicing their every word, just, to have more voters coming into their circle. They lied to the public.
So totally unrealistic starting point.
Stories,
Therefore, the final achievement or delivery will be obviously way below the targets.
If opposition parties, implemented what they promised during the 90th Assembly, at least, the basic law on the service developments and also labor reform bill, something like that, must have been passed in the National Assembly, because all those bills are relevant to creating more jobs for youngsters, but they are not cooperating with the presidential, office or ruling parties for the reason that some items are not so good to their political interest. Something like that.
As a public policy professor, Professor Hong, this lack of delivery, as Professor Park said, I think he made perfect sense. When you start off from the unrealistic starting point, obviously we can achieve it. But to what extent other factor that President herself has emphasized and the ruling party has emphasized for long, the National Assembly Advancement Law. In addition to that very important point, how did this law itself make a difference? Do you agree with the general observation that this law itself was responsible for the lack of delivery as well?
Well, it's not a matter of law. Actually, there was an old proverb in the political science, in the field of political science, that if campaign pledges are all fulfilled, countries will be all bankrupt. No question about that, because politicians, politicians always, provide a lot of campaign pledges that they cannot, as Professor Park just talked about. Say, for instance, one of the first, actually, the first of 10 campaign pledges this time by the Minju Party was that they will provide the 300,000 won for lower 70 percentile of age 65 or older.
Right, senior citizens.
Yeah. Now we are providing, we are giving them like a 200,000 won, and so it means that overnight they would like to increase 50% of that. The key issue here is that the senior population will be increased dramatically. By the year 2020, it's probably almost 30. More than 20% of the whole population.
Right.
This means that the working population, the young generation, have to pay at least like about 40% of their income and to tax. So this is ridiculous, right? So what I'm saying is that not only not only this pledge, but all other pledges. It is called campaign pledges instead of campaign contracts, because contracts should be what? Fulfilled. But pledges, actually, pledges. It remained pledges.
Okay, I see. Right. Well, wonderful point. But what about the important laws? Professor Park has mentioned, some of the service industry laws, and then the regulation-free zone creation of it, and the labor reform of those. They were talked about so much during the 19th National Assembly. And what do you see in terms of this kind of President Park's agenda going forward with the ruling party that's now not even majority? party in the National Assembly. What do you see?
Well, most, not all, but most of the laws are really, really necessary for revitalizing the stagnated economy. But as you see, in the 19th National Assembly, because we have two major parties, they are fighting with each other and actually did not produce any outcomes. Okay, that lasted this kind of all unresolved issues. I think because of these three-party structures, I would like to really strongly hope that please think about the people first and think about the economy first. The whole economic situation, job creation, don't just make a promise. You can act now by passing these resolutions, these laws, right? So there are, some slight, small, segments that are not agreed upon. Then, try to make it very quickly to make an agreement and then pass these laws. These laws are really, really important to creating jobs, revitalizing the economies, and et cetera, et cetera.
A lot of people are saying what we Koreans often use this term, golden time. There's a set period of time where we can make a difference. And for National Assembly, it's golden time is now, and within the very short period of time during the early term of the 20th National Assembly. But because as politics continue, as the presidential election comes up, there'll be more struggle, conflict, and that kind of stuff. Meaning that achievement results will be hard to come by towards the later part. So we have to act now. So are we saying Park Ji-won, People's Party, ruling party, and then opposition as well, working together to produce lots of results during the early period of time, perhaps the remainder of this year?
That's right. Otherwise, the Korean economy will be gradually collapsing. We have to restructure the economy. For example, shipping and shipbuilding industry sectors, if we do not take care, making combined effort out of political circles, collaborations. I think, every political parties will be facing huge criticisms of the public. So we need, cooperative politics. Look, before the general election, the major promises of each party, we'll make economy revitalize, we'll do everything creating jobs, something like that. They have to practice this, otherwise they will be criticized with much more criticisms, I think.
So now, unlike the 90th National Assembly, if they cannot produce any productive legislation, then all of them, they are all responsible for the situation. They knew this kind of fact exactly. So I hope really they will produce some concrete outcomes.
And we have reasons to expect that a little bit because we have a by-election coming up in April, a year from now, and then also presidential election right afterwards. So we can perhaps be a little bit more optimistic in terms of expecting more results because of this all about overall settings of the time schedule.
Hopefully, and also it is too dangerous for them to take risk, not acting now. Because of that.
The situation in security issues and the economy has been worsened and worsened. We are situated in the worst cases, ever since Korean Republic was born. It means that without new political dynamics created by the political parties, we have no future. This is very important.
So in that sense of urgency as well as timetable, we're looking ahead. Maybe, perhaps we can see the incoming 20th National Assembly being quite different from what we've seen in the past. So those are the notes of reasonable optimism from our wonderful guests today. We have to thank you big time for your wonderful insights. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we, of course, as always, thank our viewers who have joined from all around the world to see and understand these issues for Korea. So next time when we talk about these issues that matters for Korea as well as the world, we want to ask you once again to join us here in this program Upfront. Until then, this has been Kim Byung-ju. Goodbye.